Well, hello everybody. Welcome to day one of the first virtual Miss Awareness Conference. My name is Kate Sheehy, and I'm your host along with Dr. Donna, a fellow Miss member, and I'll introduce you to her shortly. We are so pleased that you've joined us today. If you haven't heard of Miss before, that's probably a good thing because we're all members of a group that we didn't really want to be a part of. Whoops. We've been around since 1992. We're close to 4,000 members across the United States, Canada, and in Europe. And our founder is Rhonda Robinson. We all think the world of Rhonda and love her so much. Behind every person that is incarcerated is a family that is doing time with them. It is beyond words the anguish one goes through. Miss is here to support each other, to advocate for our sons and daughters, and to work together with other organizations to promote the humane treatment to those behind bars. Please visit us at mothersofinmates.com. And I'm sorry for crying, but I can't help it.
We got you, Kate.
I know, right? I tried. Let me smell this lemon. Okay. We have an interesting lineup for you today, and we're really excited about our guest speakers. We're going to cover a lot of different topics. A few housekeeping items. All questions were pre-submitted. A resource packet will be sent out to everyone that registered, and we are recording. Please remember to join us tomorrow at the same time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, to listen to Carol Kent, who will give you an inspiring and encouraging message that will make a big difference in your life. Sit back, relax, and let's get started. Dr. Donna, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so glad that you joined us today. It really means a lot to us and definitely to the society that we are all a part of. I'm Dr. Donna, and I will be your moderator today. And we are so honored and appreciative to host this webinar and all of our panelists today. So in getting started, our first panelist is the Innocence Project. And the Innocence Project was founded in 1992 by Peter Neufeld and Barry Scheck at the Cardozo School of Law. The Innocence Project exonerates the wrongfully convicted through DNA testing and reforms the criminal justice system to prevent future injustice. Our speakers today include Alicia Maule, who is the Digital Engagement Director, and also Ms. Joan Anderson, who is the mother of Marvin Anderson, who was 18 years old when he was sentenced to 210 years in prison for a crime he didn't do. He spent 15 years in prison before he was exonerated in 2002 with the help of the Innocence Project. So it is my honor to give to you Alicia Maule.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's May 1st, and this is such a wonderful way to start the month. I'm Alicia Maule, and I am the Digital Engagement Director at the Innocence Project. I will get more into what we do, and I am so honored to have invited Joan Anderson. Mrs. Anderson is the mother of Marvin, who spent 20 years wrongfully incarcerated for a crime he did not commit. Marvin is a board member of the Innocence Project, someone we look up to and love, and an avid gardener when he's not the chief Hanover fireman in Virginia. And if I could just tell the leaders of the group, Miss Joan Anderson is here under Marvin Anderson. So if you could make her a panelist, and show her screen so we get both of us in the picture, that would be great. So she's under Marvin Anderson, if you can make her a panelist.
Okay, give me a sec. All right.
No rush. And is my audio sounding okay and everyone doing okay out there?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, you're good. You're good.
All right, I'm going to share my screen and tell you all more about what we do, and then let the wonderful Miss Joan Anderson speak. But again, just really honored to be here and to speak to you all about the work at the Innocence Project and how to get involved, and wish you all love and strength. So here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
You see the presentation? Excellent.
Yes.
All right, wrongful conviction, motherhood with Joan Anderson. Here we go. So our mission at the Innocence Project, we helped free innocent people who are wrongly convicted using DNA to prove innocence. And we also have a fabulous policy team that works state by state to prevent wrongful conviction and make sure that people like Marvin, who were wrongfully incarcerated, are compensated for their unjust time behind bars. So where did this idea come from? Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, they were defense attorneys in the Bronx in the 80s at Bronx Public Defenders. And at that time, DNA was being used to as evidence in courts to convict people of crimes. And they're on the defense side. So they're like, if we're using DNA to show that people are guilty, maybe we can use it to prove innocence and to defend our clients. So that is where the idea started. And we were founded in 1993. Actually, it was Barry and Peter and one or two staffers and a team of students from Cardozo Law School in New York City. And here we are almost 30 years later. So people often ask, what is the plight of wrongful conviction? We don't know, but our estimates show that somewhere between 2% and 10% of people behind bars are potentially wrongly convicted. And if we're talking about mass incarceration in the US, which we know is a huge problem and it's out of control, we're talking about 46,000 to close to 250,000 people who may be behind bars who are innocent. And of course, this could be conservative. And our attitude is if there's one innocent person behind bars, that's too many, and we must do more to prevent this. People often ask, how do you all represent people? How do you take cases? We have folks actually write to us from prison. And when they write to us, our intake team sends them an evaluation. They have to answer all these questions. And people often ask, well, what if you don't speak English? If you're Spanish speaking or a different language, what if you have learning disabilities? There's obviously, it's very challenging even to get to that step. But often people in prison might have a loved one helping, a mother or someone in prison helping them and hustling to get to us. And since we started, over 65,000 people have written to us. And it starts with this letter you see on the right. And this is from Archie Williams, who you might have seen on America's Got Talent as he's singing. But it starts with a letter to us. And that's where it all begins. And then, of course, the intake team does work to research, and we are looking for cases where there is DNA. So this is often rapes and sexual assaults and murders where there's evidence that we can retrieve from police departments, which takes years and is a challenge to show that DNA difference that makes all of us unique. So what have we learned? Nearly 400 people have been exonerated using DNA across the country. 21 of those people were sentenced to death. And of those, 44 pled guilty. So that's 21 people who might have been executed had it not been for DNA. And then we've seen these exonerations in 37 states around the country. Now, there are over 2,000 people who have been exonerated, but specifically in this case, I'm talking just about DNA, which has been sort of the space we've been leading in. What else have we learned about the people who are wrongly convicted? They were 27 at the time of wrongful conviction. Marvin was 17 or 18. He was a child. And by the time they're exonerated, they're 43. So imagine, as you all know and are suffering all of the everything that's going on in your 20s and 30s, you're building a family, you're starting a career, and for all of this to be robbed from you is pretty horrifying. And then to come out, you know, as a grown person and to adjust to life can be very challenging. And I'm sure Ms. Anderson will speak to the transition of having a son wrongly convicted. And then 14 is the average age of time they spent behind bars. The other important thing here is when we're looking for the when we help free the wrongly convicted person, DNA has helped identify 165 people who actually committed that crime. So it's important that there aren't any wrongly convicted people behind bars because you know, it poses a risk if a person is committing multiple crimes and they're not held accountable for it. What's the racial breakdown of the DNA exonerees? 60% are Black, so we know that's disproportionate when we only make up 12 or 13% of the US population. 31% are white, 8% are Latino, and I believe that's going to grow given the increases in immigration and the rise of incarceration among the Latino community. And I'm just going to look at the chat and make sure no one has said anything. All right, I'll keep going. So there's obviously, as you all know, incredible disparities and between Black exonerees and white exonerees in the same way we see in mass incarceration. Black people are 7 times more likely to be wrongly convicted of murder than innocent white people, and it takes us longer to get them out. Black folks are spending 3 years more than white exonerees. And then Black defendants exonerated of murder, 22% of those cases have police misconduct. So obviously there's a big conversation about police accountability, and we're working state by state to make sure that you know, that police don't get off without accountability, because they're a big part in what leads to seeing people like Marvin spend 20 years of their life behind bars. I don't want to get too much into this, but ultimately there is a relationship between lynchings and where we still execute people. So on the left, you can see where lynchings took place, mostly in the South. And on the right, you see the places we continue to execute people to this day. So it's a continuation, as we know, of the horrific history of our country. And it's all part, you cannot take out a history of slavery and lynchings and not think that it's directly related to the mess we're in right now with mass incarceration and executions. I think I will skip through this, but there's more implications for Black people as it relates to the death penalty. And I think the big thing here is what determines who's going to get the death penalty is actually the victim, who it was murdered. So people convicted of killing white people are executed at 7 times the rate of those convicted of killing Black people. And on the left is Troy Davis, who you might know was executed in 2011 of killing a cop, and he maintained his innocence to the very end. 90 Black people have been exonerated from death row nationwide. And then a couple more minutes here, the causes of wrongful conviction. Why is this happening? 70% is eyewitness misidentification. Our memories are garbage, and certainly we don't remember. And guess what? When it's cross-racial, it's even worse. And this is what happened in Marvin's case, is an eyewitness saying it was him, but it really wasn't. And that should not be the only evidence we're using to convict people. We just had a client exonerated in New York. And the only evidence used against him was the eyewitness testimony of a child. And that's just too much pressure on the child and not accurate. We need evidence. And it happens almost in the majority of our cases. What else? Bad science. 43% involved junk science. Bite marks, for instance. Bite marks, when you have a rape or a murder, the victim or the perpetrator might leave a bite mark, and it's not unique the way DNA can really distinguish you from me. Bad hair samples, just poor science, and the standard was very low in terms of what's admissible in a court, and we work to make the level of science and the rigor there higher. And then false confessions. People say, why would an innocent person plead to a crime they didn't commit? It's pressure. It's to avoid a lesser sentence. We've seen clients plead when they're facing execution. They're like, okay, well, yeah, I'll do it. If you're going to kill me, I'll say I did it. It happens very frequently among youth. They're scared. They don't have an attorney. They don't have an adult in the room. And police are like the Central Park Five, the exonerated five in New York. And we're talking, 2 days of being questioned, in some cases abused by police. It's very scary. You don't know what to do, and you sign something. You might not speak the language. You might not know how to read, and you just want to get out of the room with the cops and just do whatever they ask. And then incentivized informants. These are people who are incentivized to say, yep, Alicia did it, because they'll get a lesser sentence. There's, jailhouse snitches who really make a career of snitching on multiple people, and this plays a role in wrongful convictions as well. And of course, inadequate defense is a big thing. We have a system where we don't have capacity to represent people, and we have public defenders who have 10, you guys know, I'm sure, have a volume of cases where they can't give a level of detail and support. In some cases, drunk attorneys, irresponsible attorneys who don't care about the client. This all plays a role into what we've seen with our clients. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about Marvin's case, and then let Ms. Anderson really speak to the experience of having a son wrongly convicted. I just got off the phone with Marvin, who helped his mom join us today. He's wonderful, but let's just talk about what happened so you understand, what his family went through. In 1982, he was 17 at the time the crime happened, and he was wrongly convicted of raping a white woman in Hanover, Virginia, and was sentenced to 210 years behind bars. Ms. Anderson can talk more about this, but ultimately, the police didn't like that Marvin had a white girlfriend at the time. It's a small town. A white woman was raped. And who did they know? Police singled out Marvin because they knew he was living with a white woman. We're talking about the 80s. And so police, and to get him convicted, they used some pretty shoddy tactics. Marvin was the only person in the lineup whose picture was in the original photo array shown to the victim, to say, yep, that was him. Even the community spoke out and said they knew who had done it. It wasn't Marvin. They knew the person who had likely committed it, but Marvin's attorneys refused to investigate and do the work. Again, the inadequate defense. In 1988, the perpetrator came forward and said that he had done it. And guess what? That might have been 1998, but I don't know if that's right. But it wasn't until the Innocence Project took his case and DNA proved that he was innocent. And then it took another year for the governor of Virginia to pardon him. That was in 2002. Marvin is the board member of the Innocence Project. He's the police chief, or the fire chief, and an avid gardener. And a wonderful leader in our community. And I'm so honored to introduce now Miss Joan Anderson, his mother, who is also an important leader and figure in our community. So thank you all, and I'll pass it to Joan now to take over.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm Joan Anderson. Of course, I'm Marvin's mother. Marvin was convicted, went to jail at age 18, and I was a young mother when that happened. So I had to fight, because we all knew who committed the crime. And after about 10 years, I went to the Innocence Project, and they took his case on. But before then, Marvin was arrested because of the fact that he dated a white lady, a young white girl. And the rapist told her that he was married to a white woman and he hated all white people. So because the arresting officers assumed that the only person in Ashland, Virginia that he knew was Black and had a white girlfriend. And that's when they came to Marvin. They destroyed the evidence. The guy, the rapist, was on a bicycle. I had 2 men to come and tell me that they knew, they didn't see him do it, but they knew who stole the bicycle and which way he traveled. And the police department, they took the bike, they didn't get evidence off the bike or anything. And so I had to spend a lot of money, I had to hire a lot of people, private investigators, to look into the situation. I went through every court in the state of Virginia, except for the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. And they would just say, my hands are tied, our hands are tied, our hands are tied. So that's when I went to the Innocence Project. And it took them a long time because they destroyed the evidence. They destroyed his evidence, but the serologist that they did the testing, she died in 1999, but in his folder, when Peter called to Virginia, to the DNA Forensic Science Building to talk to the head there, he pulled his file. And after 21 years, his DNA was taped in the back of the folder. Nobody knew it was there, which it went directly to the person that really committed the crime. And the young man that committed the crime, he had been in jail, in and out of jail. He had just come out of jail for attempted rape of a white girl around Randolph-Macon College, around the street from where we lived in. And Marvin's attorney did not tell us, but he was also that young man's attorney too. So he had a conflict of interest. So it was just a big, big mess. It was just a big mess. And I kept fighting, I kept fighting, I kept fighting. And so we got justice. And it wasn't for the Innocence Project, I don't know. You know, with Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, they never gave up. And that's where everything was found in the folder. It had been there for 21 years and sealed perfectly. And the young man that committed the crime ended up spending the rest of his life in jail. But it was just really hard. And I know it's hard for other mothers because I cried for days and nights. And I mean, I lost about 40 pounds in a month because it was devastating. I just could not imagine that happening. You know, I never heard of it happening because I never had a need to pay any attention. And at a young age, Marvin was 18, participating in everything, was a junior fireman. He played baseball, he played football. And I just never imagined that happening to me and my family, really, my other siblings that were younger. And so I had to give up a lot to do what I needed to do for Marvin. So I would go from this place to that place, you know, having fundraising, raising money for his the lawyer's costs, because we really didn't have any money, but life was really hard. And when I think about it and I see other people going through the same thing that I went through, my heart it's painful. It's just painful. And so, but a lot of it is because of race. And I just, you know, I get real filled up when I have to talk a whole lot about it, because it's something that you never forget. I can be driving my car and sometimes I just start thinking and I just almost cry. I just have to get myself together. Marvin had a brother that would go and visit him, but while Marvin was incarcerated, his brother got killed in a car accident. So that was even, you know, it was a lot. It was a lot to endure as a young mother. I mean, I started out with this at age 37 years old. And so now I'm an old lady and Marvin has children. And so I have grandchildren, I have great-grandchildren. But if I had to do it again at age 75, I would do it all over again.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but mothers just you know, just keep the faith and just keep praying. I know it's hard. I've been there and I've done that. And so, like I say, it's just not right. It's just not right. And the justice system is just not right. It's just not right.
Oh, Miss Anderson, I my heart just skipped a couple beats as you told your story.
It's a lot
Blessings to
more.
you. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sure there is.
A lot more. It would take days. It's a lot
yes,
more.
yes.
But I'm so proud of him. You know, when he came out, he wasn't angry. He just said nobody is born angry, so you're not angry. And he just went on with his life. You know, he says, Mom, when he came home, the first place I took him was to Lowe's. And so he said, Lowe's. He said, we're in here so long. He went to sit down, you know. I'll go to Lowe's. I love Lowe's. I think everybody needs to go to Lowe's. So I was trying to get him acclimated to coming back around a lot of people, but he was just fine. And he's good. He's really good. You know, he has 2 sons and they're wonderful. He has his own trucking company. You know, he retired as a fire chief in the fire department. And now he tells me he's gardening, but he's in my garden outside taking pictures. And what is that? So we're going to go to Lowe's after this is all over because that's where I got my flowers from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, God bless you.
Well, thank you so much.
We are very honored and respectful of your strength.
Yeah.
And I think that is very important. And of course, to the Innocence Project for their tenacity of helping you with this. We do have some questions that I'm not sure whether they'll be directed to you, Mrs. Anderson, or to Alicia, but one came in this morning, and are there any mail correspondence programs that are geared toward criminal justice reform, so that if there is someone out there, a loved one out there, a mother out there, that we could start this process, or they could start this process?
I'm sure that is directed. No? Is she still there?
Yes, she has to turn on. Yeah, there you go.
I'm here. The question is, what's the question about criminal justice reform?
Is there any correspondence programs? In other words, are there, basically, I guess the question is asking, where should they start?
If they have a loved one who's wrongly convicted?
Correct. I'm sorry. Yes, correct.
Yeah, so we take a very small % of cases, but we actually have 50 or 68 partners nationwide and around the world. So depending on where you're located, you can go to the Innocence Network and type in your zip code and see who the local project is, and go to them, because they take more than just DNA cases. So I think there is a lot more support with all these projects around the world and the country that are independently run, but have the Innocence name. So like Innocence Project of Florida, or the Illinois Innocence Project, the Exoneration Project. So go to the Innocence Network. I had a couple of slides in terms of getting involved, but go to the Innocence Project. Our website is innocenceproject.org. I'm going to put it in the chat, and you should follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, to stay involved and to get involved with all the different, like I said, we represent people, but we also work to change the policies to prevent the bad practices that lead to wrongful conviction. So that's a great place to get started.
Right. Yeah, I think, I mean, you got to start somewhere. And just like Mrs. Anderson said, it's a long road, and you run here, you run there. But I think having that Innocence Project as a direct, kind of contact and a starting point is good. So thank you for that. The next question, I don't know, you may or may not be able to answer, but we had many general questions regarding procedures inside, such as guards not filling out loved ones' requests, loved one not responding to our loved ones being ill, general behaviors relating to interfacing with officers and their loved ones, being cut off from video visits after they paid for them, issues with internal complaints. Does the Innocence Project do anything with the inside coming out, or is it just geared to, I feel I'm innocent, I know I'm innocent, and this is where I have to go to?
Yeah, so yeah, your attorney would be helpful in these matters, and we do, maintain relationships with our clients when we're representing them. And actually, the students, the Cardozo Law students, they're the ones who pick up the phone when our clients call. We take around 200 people, but in terms of the last year, as you know, I'm sure it's been difficult because they haven't allowed visits in prisons, and COVID is running rampant, and they don't have the gear to protect themselves, nor the space. So yeah, it's inadequate, and I think it's up to the attorneys to really fight for the families to make sure clients have whatever it is they can have within the rules of the prison walls. And I don't know, Ms. Anderson, if you have any anecdotes on how you managed issues with Marvin while he was in prison.
Yes, I never had a problem when Marvin was incarcerated. He was at Southampton Juvenile Correction Center. I never had a problem. He's correcting me, okay? I never had a problem. It seemed like to me, they were just extra good to Marvin there. I don't know what it was, but he could call whenever he wanted to. And they would tell me, the guards would say, please get him out of here. He doesn't belong here. He stands out like a sore thumb. So as far as they, having a little more, it seemed like he had just a little bit more things that he could do without being a problem. He called all the time. I was allowed to take him food. And first they would go through the food and check it and everything. Then after a while, they stopped doing that. It was like, I don't know. It was just like, I don't know. It was just like God was there, and he worked down there with the nurses, and they would bring him the kind of cereal he wanted to eat and bring his milk. So it was just, he was there, but his stay there was not cruel or harsh, and the whole time he was there, out of 15 years, he never had a blemish on his record. He never got into trouble, or he went to school. He took welding and automotive mechanic, and he was getting his degree in psychology. So I just, first I was angry about the problem, but then I kept saying, maybe just God got him there for some reason. And, and people just kind of looked up to him. So, I didn't have that kind of problem. And I'm sure people do have that problem
Right.
with their children or their sons or daughters incarcerated. But I didn't run into any of that.
Yeah, that's a great blessing.
And he was there for 15 years. And I went every visiting day, and I only missed 3 days out of 15 years. And I was sick, the reason I couldn't go. But every holiday, every visiting day, I was there. I wore my car out. I wore my car completely out, and I would feed other inmates there because they didn't have visitors. I would always take enough change so they could get a snack. I would keep enough money to get back to the toll booth to get back home.
Wow.
So, but
bless you, Miss.
Yeah.
I mean, there are no words. There are no words.
I made sure I had 35 cents to get back home.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, we certainly appreciate your candor and your openness and honesty. And we wish Marvin all the best. Marvin, I know you can hear me. Yes, we do. He said,
I didn't shake.
There, we are so honored.
Since I've been retired from the fire department, I've been able to grow a beard and all of that, which I couldn't do. Right. But I was over here hearing everything that was being said to that question about family not being able to get information about their loved ones that are incarcerated when they're sick or anything like that.
Yes.
this is one of the things that a lot of people fail to realize. When you are a ward of the state has total control of that person.
Yeah.
They do not have to give out information. And a lot of people don't understand that or realize that. And that's the way it operates. Now, I'm trying to not to get out of view. When I was incarcerated, I was in college, and I think in the mid-'80s is when the governor decided to end all college programs. So I never did get to finish while I was there. But what I did accomplish was certified mechanic, welder, and carpenter. So I did take advantage of my time while I was there.
Well, I need a gardener. Will you come up and help me in my garden?
Where do you live?
I'm in Pennsylvania. It's way too
Oh,
far.
wait a minute. He goes to Pennsylvania.
All the time.
Well,
It's a
keep
must.
all my contacts here. I will get in contact with you.
Well, I can tell you this. I deliver a lot of straw up there to the mushroom plants up in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Bennett
Now,
Square.
yes. Now, as far as compost, mushroom.
Yes.
The best compost you can get.
Yes.
So stay with your mushroom compost, you should be fine.
Blessings to you, and thank you so much, Mrs. Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a good week.
Oh, you as well, and happy Mother's Day.
Well, thank you so much.
Blessings to you. Okay, blessings to you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to quickly just show for a few more photos, if you can see, of Marvin and Joan. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. It's coming up though, I think. Not yet. It says you have started screen sharing, but
You don't
there,
see anything?
There it goes, there it goes, there it goes.
So do you want to say anything about these images, Miss Anderson?
This is, can you go back to with his fire gear on? Can you go back to that one with the fire gear? Well, this is when he came out and he got exonerated in about 1.5 years. He went back to the academy to get his firefighter 2. At 17 or 16, he had his firefighter 1 course. Then he was incarcerated. So when he came out, this is his gear when he got his firefighter 2.
No, that's the year when I got promoted to chief.
This is the year when he said he got promoted to chief of the fire department. Okay, the second one is at a conference in New York.
Is that the gala, the IP Innocence Project gala?
Yeah, that's the gala. That was probably about 6-7 years ago. Let's show some more. You got some more? Let's see. Okay, this is him in uniform as a chief of the fire department. This is his big rig. He after about 2 years of being out, he had this truck built from the ground up. He bought it brand new. It's a Peterbilt. And he has a sleeper. He has a TV. He has a refrigerator. And his kids lived in the truck because he had 2 boys. And so they had to go to work with him and the dogs. So the dogs are truckers. And that's me standing there as I picked out the colors for the truck. So, and what else? Let's see, you got something else?
Here's a video.
Well, TikTok
video.
It's TikTok. I love it.
Let me see, who is this? That's him and his son is now 21, that one that you just saw a picture of. We can't hear you.
We can't hear the video.
Okay. What is it?
But we thank you. Oh, wow.
And just, if any other mothers would like to talk to me, they're more than welcome to call me and talk to me.
Is it okay if we share your email?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, if you share my email, because I've been there and done that.
Well, so in the chat, mothers are saying, thank you for sharing your experience, Joan. So powerful, and happy Mother's Day. Thank you, Marvin, for sharing your story, and happy to see your future success. God to continue bless you and your family.
And thank you so, thank you so,
Thank you. We are honored to have you here today.
well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Alicia, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Love you all. Thank you for the time and for letting us be part of your community. Love and strength all the way, and love you mothers so much. Keep fighting.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Alicia. Where's the number?
Love you, Joan. Thank you. We can now.
Thank you. And I love you all too. Can we leave now?
Yes, you may leave. Thank you. Marvin will be in touch. All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
All righty. Well, let me compose myself after that one. Our next speaker is from the National Commission on Correctional Healthcare, and the NCCHC is an independent nonprofit organization whose mission is to assure quality of care in jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Brent Gibson. He is a medical doctor. He is broadly experienced, board certified physician with over a decade of senior leadership experience in both not-for-profit and for-profit businesses. Brent currently serves as the Chief Health Officer for the National Commission on Correctional Healthcare and Managing Director at NCCHC Resources. And Brent, you are on.
Thank you, Dr. Donna. Can you all hear me all right?
I think so. I can. Okay.
Well, I appreciate it. It's such an honor to be here, and I feel like a bit out of place with this group of folks, such incredible experiences and a lot of painful experiences, but it sounds like some good ones as well through all the suffering that's gone on. So it's a big honor to be here. I hope to give you just a little bit of information and perspective about what we do and why we think it's important, because I see in the chat that's been rolling by, people have questions about healthcare inside and so forth. And I hope to give you some basic information and then be available for questions as per the moderators. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. We just have a few slides prepared, which will give you an overview of who we are and what we do. So you should see the first slide here.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we've been around a long time. We've been around since the early 80s, which seems like a different age now. As my own children grow up and I see the time going by, it's been about 40 years. I was really struck by the comments about the age that someone might be wrongly incarcerated or incarcerated for any reason and the time that they get out, and the world is very different. And I think about how long it's been since we were founded and how far the field has come. We started out, the work for the commission really came out in the 1970s, where there were some very high profile disturbances at the Attica prison, which is in upstate New York. And a lot of the, or some of the complaints at least, were about the quality of healthcare. And back in those days, and perhaps even in a few places here and there now, there's very limited healthcare in jails and prisons. And those are two pretty distinct places that we'll want to keep in mind, jail versus prison. You can be in a jail for years before you're convicted. And so that's another very unfortunate situation that happens sometimes. But in a nutshell, our job, we write standards, if you will, to ensure that basic healthcare quality occurs inside jails and prisons. It is a constitutional right, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. It's a right to receive healthcare. The incarcerated population, despite the terrible challenges, are one of the few populations that are guaranteed healthcare while they're incarcerated. And the question is, and the space, if you will, that we fit into is, what does that mean? What does quality healthcare mean? What exactly is it a person is entitled to, if you will? Got a little music here. So that was a great musical interlude. It sometimes still surprises me as we've grown, we've gotten a little bit more professional. And so we have professional marketing people that put together beautiful things like that, which I'm not used to because I've been there long enough to remember when we really did everything ourselves. But the point I was getting at before the music started is it's not defined anywhere particularly clearly what quality healthcare means, right? So there's this guarantee there without a lot of detail about how to provide that information. Here's a very quick legal roadmap to how we got to this point, and this is actually a question. So I don't know if anybody knows this, but the case we always come back to, the first premier case, if you will, is the Estelle versus Gamble case, which again, that actually came out of a Texas case. And I have to emphasize, this particular case was not a particularly complicated or severe health problem, but that wasn't the point. The point was the court used this example to emphasize that healthcare needed to be provided. It was not an option. So a little bit here about our origins. I think I've already talked about this a little bit. We are primarily a scientific and technical group. We do not do research per se, but we work with people that do. We have our origins pretty clearly traced to the American Medical Association, which, if you don't know, is a Chicago-based doctors association protecting the interests of patients by ensuring their doctors have what they need to be successful. And we are a little different in that we don't have members. We very specifically don't have a membership aspect to us because we think that could lead to real or perceived biases, if you will. So we work strictly through our programs. So there's no membership fees, that kind of thing. So this is a slide I think that will lay out a little bit the different things we do on my right. I think you're right as well. And on left, kind of the needs in the correctional healthcare world. I heard or saw on the chat some questions. What do you do if there's no healthcare, if there's malpractice, if there's a long delay for getting healthcare? All of those things do in fact happen. And we work through the things you see here to be sure that they happen less and less or not at all. Healthcare systems inside jails and prisons are often very overburdened. And patients who are incarcerated often have very poor health for lots of reasons. So it's a really challenging situation. We have seen many examples in the better systems where healthcare, the health status, if you will, of someone who is incarcerated can actually improve because the best healthcare they've gotten was on the inside. Now, that's not a great, thing. Our society should do a better job at providing some safety net health services, but at least if you are in a facility that we work with, you should get pretty good quality care, including dental care and mental health care. One of the things we've more recently done, two things really, the second and the third from the bottom, sorry, not the last one, the two above that, is we have a foundation. So we are able to garner, if you will, financial support for our programs. That's new. And then we also offer a lot of consulting services because there's a lot of jails out there that may just not be jails and prisons that may not be ready for accreditation, in other words, to pass the test, but they still need some help. And so we offer them help as well. And that kind of rounds out a bit of what we do. So accreditation, these are, again, it's a little bit of technical information and I don't want to bore everybody, but it may help you to remember these things. Accreditation is what we do, if you will, or what a facility or a program can earn for providing high quality healthcare. It's like when you go to a hospital that's accredited by the Joint Commission, same kind of thing. And so we write the standards and then we assess, we call it surveying, to see that those standards are met. And again, some of this is kind of geared toward the jails and prisons themselves. And I guess I'll just have a quick comment there. I really appreciated the comment I think Mrs. Anderson made that her son was treated reasonably well on the inside. And I also saw in the chats that was not always the case. The people that work in jails and prisons, we call them officers. Guards is kind of an older term, but these correctional officers, they're people too, good ones and bad ones, do good things, do bad things. And so, we totally understand that, but it's good. It would hopefully make everyone feel a little better to know that the vast majority of people I worked with who work on the inside really do care about patients, the inmates, and their mission, and they are doing their job, if you will, like anywhere else. So that's a little about accreditation. We do have different standards. I think I heard earlier about juvenile health programs or juvenile detention, and we accredit those as well. It's a different part of the legal system. And when we say as you guys may know, the distinction of being a juvenile or an adult is sort of age-based and sort of not. So we, as medical people, think in terms of biology. So if you're a young person, you're a juvenile and you need to be taken care of that way. And of course, a great area of concern is what happens when a younger person ends up in a facility geared for adults. Well, it's a lot of challenges, both on the healthcare, mental health, and safety side. And so we're aware of those things as well. I mentioned earlier that a lot of people that work on the inside, certainly on the healthcare side, they really care very deeply about what they do. So we offer a certification program for individual nurses or doctors or dentists or other people who can take a test, if you will, learn our standards and study them very deeply and become certified. And so we encourage people to get this certification, because if you were going to be hiring someone, it's a nice, it says something about their background. The answer to this one is all of the above. So even corrections officers can become certified in correctional healthcare. We do a lot of meetings and educations, not educational events, not unlike this one here. We just finished up our meeting this week, virtual. We have pretty large conferences, depending not by certain industry standards, but we will typically bring together 1,500 people or so once a year in the fall, and maybe a little less than that in the spring. And then we have a lot of other meetings too. What's interesting is during the virtual environment, a lot more people showed up for our conference. So much so that it strained our systems. We had over 8,000 registrants earlier this week. And it was fantastic that people are interested in what we do. And I think as mothers and fathers of sons and daughters incarcerated, just know that's a huge level of interest in high quality healthcare for those who are incarcerated. So that's really good. It should feel a little better. I would also say that one of the things we often talk about is the importance of a career in this area. It is not the most prestigious place to work, I would say. I think that's fair to say, but it doesn't have to be that way. If you're a medical person, a doctor, or a nurse, incredible need on the inside, including from a doctor's perspective, some very interesting and complicated things that can really challenge you professionally. And so we want the best and the brightest to serve their patients inside the correctional environment, not in any other way. Excuse me. This is just a quick breakdown of who comes to our conferences. You can see here. So we get all types of folks. We have a magazine, a peer-reviewed medical journal, and we also have special publications like the top two you see there. We partnered with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention to make the Suicide Prevention Guide. As some of you may know, suicide prevention is critically important inside the correctional environment. And we want the people we work with, the facilities, if you will, to ensure that they've made it as safe as possible for inmates. On the upper right, you'll see a guide we wrote a couple of years ago with the National Sheriff's Association that focuses on treatment for those who have opioid addiction. The jail and prison environment is actually a reasonable place to begin treatment for some of these problems. And so that's something to keep in mind. As I said, we have a foundation here, and the proceeds, a large chunk of the proceeds, our foundation runs by a professional foundation executive, and she ensures that administrative costs are kept to a minimum. And there is a particular emphasis in education. We put a lot of money to help people attend our events so that they can learn more about what we do and why it's important to provide high quality healthcare inside jails and prisons. When we do, as I said, technical assistance for consulting, if you will, this is where a lot of my daily activities are. We go around the country in big jails and small prisons, remote, urban, all of these places. to help people do their jobs better and take care of, again, your sons and daughters. And it's just a few examples of some of the projects we've been involved in. Really all kinds of interesting and technical work. It's probably not interesting to mothers and fathers out there, but it has to be done. These things done right is what leads to better experiences and better outcomes for your loved ones who may be incarcerated. I think that's my last slide. So I'm happy to go here. And I think Dr. Donna, you have some questions?
I do. I've been monitoring the chat, and then I also had sent some questions to you. So I want to kind of work back from the chat and go forward, because I think maybe some of these are more, they will answer some of the ones that we had previously received. Okay, first one. How does one get involved with your commission?
Well, thank you very much. Probably the easiest thing is to start with our website. You say, I'm going to type it here if I can. Can I type that in the chat, Dr. Donna? Would that be
Sure,
okay?
yes, you may. Any information that you want to put in, that's fine.
Great. We have a ton of complimentary free resources, learning resources. We have webinars, all kinds of stuff. So to get involved, I would start by doing a little reading, poking around our website, see what's there, and also attending some of our events. These meetings are really, fun, if you will, in a professional way. And you may imagine it can be lonely to be a correctional worker too. You don't know, you work in your county jail and you're the only nurse, if you will. But there are thousands more like you out there, but we don't always get together. So our meetings are a great place for that to happen.
Okay. And along that same line, okay, now we know about your commission. How do we find out if our loved one's prison or jail or correctional facility is accredited?
That is an excellent question. Thank you so much for asking that. We are a little different than some other organizations in that we don't publish these lists. And the reason is complicated, but we prefer that the facility or program itself lets you know. So many places will publish very proudly that they're accredited. It's technically not public information. As Mr. Anderson said earlier, this is a very kind of locked down world, if you will, and people don't, I came out of the military and I did a lot of, interesting secret stuff. It reminds me a little bit of that. It's just a closed world where information sharing doesn't happen.
Right.
And so I would say that one thing I will, if you can remember this, if you will, I'll put our email address in here, info@ncchc.org. Usually, if you ask about one specific facility, our information officer, if you will, can release that information. I don't want to guarantee something. We have a lot of legal stuff that goes on in the background too, as you can imagine. But so yeah, that's the best way to do is ask them. Again, remember that if you're in jail, you're probably under the authority of the county sheriff, right? Wherever you may be.
Right.
If you're in prison, you're under the authority of the state. They're quite distinct and the rules are very different.
And do you do federal?
We do. So it's interesting. I'm an former employee of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. It's where I started my work in corrections. So we do not accredit Federal Bureau of Prison facilities. We do a lot of work with M.I.S.S, if you will, and other government entities. Again, many of them prefer that we don't discuss our project work, but I would say that the federal government is extremely interested in trying to do the right thing and getting the accreditations that are needed. I know it's a strange thing to say, but you have to trust me that people that are professional folks in the corrections world really are professionals and they want to do their job. So the Federal Bureau of Prisons is very public for obvious reasons. They have all kinds of interesting public resources. You can read how they take care of their patients, their program statements, all that stuff is readily available.
Okay. And again, when you do your surveys, your accreditation reviews or what have you,
Yes.
Are they published? Are they public knowledge? So to
They
speak?
they are not, but they are the property, if you will, of the facility or program. Now, again, if there's a subpoena, we obviously release those things. And so that's how they get out there. And over the years of our existence, enough stuff has been floated around, probably publicly, that you can find things if you look on your own. I think some legal agreements require that. But again, it's just a very closed world. And I will say, though, that there are many progressive elected officials out there, and the level of progressive thinking is not as correlated as you might think with the sort of stereotypes of the different parts of the country. We have progressive, forward-thinking sheriffs. A really good friend of ours who just passed away from Virginia, actually, Sheriff B.J. Roberts from Hampton, was just one of these super forward-thinking African-American executive, just a wonderful guy, passed away, unfortunately. He was very, he was up there in age. He looked like he was 40, but he was probably like 80. He must have done something right.
Wow.
But we'll see some really advanced stuff come out of places that you might not think are out there. So most of our sheriffs really do care about, their patients. I would only just say something to think about is that there's always competition for dollars, right? So local people, local elected officials are answering to an electorate, and the perceptions around corrections are not always good for lots of reasons, right? It's not that people don't care about sons and daughters. It's just that some families feel like, hey, if you're going to be funding that, why not fund this? We need a new school, we need new books. If you remember the furor about the vaccine in prisons, I'll just use this example. It's very clear from a healthcare, public health perspective that the incarcerated population needs to be vaccinated. People are in and out of prisons all the time, officers, staff, it's close quarters. But it was politically unpopular in some areas when average people, if you will, wouldn't get the vaccine or couldn't get to it. Of course, now we're seeing people making all kinds of strange decisions about whether they want vaccines or not. And I would just tell you, yes, you should get a vaccination. Unofficially, that's just Brent Gibson speaking. But there's also a trust issue, turning the coin around a little bit. Prisons have not been kind to people over the centuries, especially men and women of color. Let's talk about that. So if you were to offer me a vaccine and I don't trust you, am I going to take that? No, that's a real challenge. So anyway, but
and along that same lines, is there any kind of right to know law or legislation that a loved one could find out health care information?
That's a great question. Healthcare is tough because it's very private to the patient. Let me answer the question this way. Historically, a lot of jails and prisons have acted like they own the health information. It's actually an interesting kind of legal area. My opinion is your healthcare information is your healthcare information, whether the healthcare is given in a prison, jail, or anywhere else. The reason I say that is it's not always easy to access it. If you've ever tried to get medical records out of any hospital, it's very, very tough. So, even more so here. And that's for your protection. I mean, that's really for the protection of your loved ones. There also are a lot of, nefarious folks out there. There are people that might do bad with that information. There are, in fact, I don't mean to sound an understatement, there are dangerous criminals and other elements out there, not your loved ones, but they are in with your loved ones. I'll give you one other example. I think this is really important to know. We put a lot of emphasis on drug treatment inside jails and prisons where it's appropriate. Many of the elements inside don't like that because it's disruptive of the criminal business model. So there are bad folks in there mixing and mingling with yours, and we don't know who those people are. We just see patients, if you will. So anyway, if you see something that seems just frustrating and unfair, just know that the administrators are trying to keep things, not bad things from happening, which they sometimes. Major case in the Michigan prison system. The U.S. attorneys have just prosecuted with a big international drug ring being run out of the prisons. So, it's but I will tell you again, having worked in the inside, the number of bad people is really small. I would say in the hundreds and hundreds of people I took care of, a handful were truly dangerous, truly bad, if you will. And the vast majority of people, this is not an official anything, but wrong place, wrong time, weird law, something they didn't understand, no defense, you're the wrong color. That is absolutely true. And this is, the white guy speaking. So I get it. Anyway, all that being said, we're trying to do what we can to get the healthcare at least acceptable for everybody that's on the inside. It
Well,
does
we
make
certainly appreciate all that you do. And again, we are honored to have you here today. And I am sure you might be hearing from some of our members and some of our attendees because the information is well worth knowing.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brett. All right. Boy, we're learning a lot. I mean, I learned a lot, and I've talked to Brett formally. So I think that all the information, I saw some chat posts that they couldn't hear, they wanted the website, all of that. You will get all of this information. First of all, the whole conference is being recorded, and you will get a packet because you are a registered participant. So hang in, it's coming. We won't forget you. Okay, moving right along. Our last panelists are from the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison. And the Alliance and its stakeholders believe all people, regardless of their location or their circumstance, should have access to quality higher education. And higher education in prison provides the support and human connection that all people need to thrive. It also addresses the lack of resources and system of injustice that currently excludes some people from access to a quality college education. I am proud to say that I am a member of the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison. I have also been a presenter at their last virtual conference, and it is my honor to give to you today two representatives, Lauren Reed, who is the Communication and Community Engagement Coordinator for the Alliance, and Dr. Valeria Danny, who is the Community Engagement Director for the Alliance as well. Ladies.
Thank you very much, Dr. Donna, and thank you very much for inviting us to this wonderful initiative. I want to start by saying Happy May Day and Happy International Workers' Day. And again, I'm delighted to be here in celebration and acknowledgement of labor, all kind of labor, also the emotional labor you are going through as mothers of incarcerated sons. So I am going, we have some slides that we would like to share with all of you, and slides that are really about sharing resources that we hope you will find useful and helpful. The title of this presentation is The Importance of Higher Education in Prison, Visions, Challenges, and Potentialities. You will find the info at higheredinprison.org email address. So if you have any questions after this presentation, please write to us. And the way that we're going to proceed, first, Lauren Reed will introduce herself. The brilliant Lauren will introduce herself and her approach and story in the field and to the field. I will then introduce myself and my approach to the field, which is slightly different, but at the same time in camaraderie with Lauren's approach. Then we will give you an overview of the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison and talk about some specific projects that we're working on that we think will be of interest for all of you. So Lauren, to you.
Thank you, Valeria. It's nice to see you on a Saturday. I normally see you every day during the week. So I am really excited to be here today, and mostly because I did not know an organization like this existed while I was incarcerated myself. I spent about 5 years in prison when in my early 20s. And my mom didn't have anything like this organization to support her through my incarceration, and had no idea about any resources out there that could have helped her through. So I appreciate this organization, and I'm excited to be here to share some information with all of you that I was able to find. So I was incarcerated. I got out of prison in 2013, but in 2010, during my incarceration, I was really lucky to be in a prison that had higher education available to me. And my mom, who is my champion, she went to my high school and got my high school diploma, and got it to the prison made them fax it over to the prison so I could enroll in college classes right away. Once I got that paperwork in, I started classes in February of 2010 and continued taking classes throughout my incarceration. Through that, it was really important because if I didn't have education, I don't think that I would have made it to where I am today, now being out of prison for 7 years. It basically saved me while I was there, I think. And obviously my family visits, like my mom coming to visit me and my, family members who could make it there, but that was a lot of privilege. The visit rooms would be empty sometimes, as you guys know, when you go to see your sons or your daughters who are incarcerated, it's probably not as full as you would expect it to be. So it's kind of disheartening. But as I went through my education, I was able to go from a pathway from the prison to Rutgers University, and I graduated Rutgers in 2017 as a free person and the first person in my family to ever receive a bachelor's degree. Since then, my sister, she actually graduates with her bachelor's degree on May 21st. So I'm so excited about that.
Bravo.
Yes.
Yeah.
It kind of brings me to tears because it's been a long road, and to hear that like I've been a good influence on my family like that has been pretty amazing. So the reason why I do the work that I do today is because I can't see my life any different. If I didn't have education while I was incarcerated, I couldn't lead a life. I have a job that's got benefits and a full-time position, and I am blessed to be where I am. I relocated from New York State, where I grew up, to Denver, Colorado. Currently, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. I also work with another organization called Prison Cells to PhDs, doing some contract work with them to help with their communications. And I'm here at a retreat in Baltimore. So I have this like really amazing hotel room. So this is not my home, which is crazy. I got upgraded to a presidential suite. So I'm here, and I would never imagine that my life, the day that I was getting incarcerated, would look like it does today. And there's hope there for you and your families. And everybody gets out of prison, or most people get out of prison, not everyone. And you can change your life when you get out. And I think that for me, education is the reason why I am able to succeed, and so many others are. I'm a little bit emotional, so I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Valeria, and then we'll continue on, and I'll come back on the screen in a couple minutes.
Thank you, Lauren. My approach to the field and the way that I approach the field is maybe more academic. I received my PhD at Cornell University 2 years ago, and during my graduate program, I started teaching in maximum security prisons in upstate New York. I am still part of the Cornell Prison Education Program, so I'm still teaching inside. Unfortunately, right now with the pandemic, it's impossible for us instructors to actually go inside the facilities, but I am teaching correspondence classes. So if you have any questions about that from a faculty perspective, I will try to answer your curiosities and doubts. But my approach to the field is mainly political and theoretical. So together with the Alliance, I'm thinking about how higher education in prison is a very valuable tool to resist the violence of the carceral space, to resist the oppression that the carceral space is actually perpetrating on currently incarcerated people. And I more specifically work on political theory, and I look at higher education from a pedagogical perspective. And I am teaching more specifically, again, Jewish studies, feminist and gender studies literature. And right now I'm teaching a writing class for currently incarcerated students. So right now we wanted to give you an overview of the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison. So we'll pass it again to Lauren.
Hello. So I don't see myself on the screen, and so I apologize if you just see Valeria. I'm not on the screen, but you see me?
Yes.
Oh, I can't
And
see
we see
me.
your slide. We see
Oh, okay.
your slide.
So you just hear my voice. That's great. That's okay. So a little bit about the Alliance. So the Alliance was in 2015 of November of 2015, after years of formal and informal discussions about the need for a national organization to support this growing field of higher education in prison. More than 300 stakeholders, including teachers, program directors, students who were currently and formerly incarcerated, system impacted family members like you all here today in the audience, community members, all participated in a strategic planning process that informed the creation of the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison. In June of 2016, a 13-member strategic planning committee was formed and collected a lot of the feedback from a planning process and wrote this prospectus report for this vision of creating this national organization. This was also done in conjunction with Sing Sing Prison and Hudson Link for Higher Education in Prison. A lot of the currently incarcerated students at the time in that education program helped inform this prospectus report. Later, there was an advisory board founded, and then in 2017, the Alliance began hiring staff. I came onto the team in 2019. I used to work for Hudson Link for Higher Education in Prison in New York, but then came over here through those connections at the Alliance. So today, what our main goal is to support all of the higher education prison and programs throughout the country. There's over 300 of them currently. But as you know, there's like 7,000 7,000 prisons in this country. So we tried to support all of those programs through some of the work that we do. We also have like a cohort of prison education programs that we could help like formulate how they would be able to better serve the currently incarcerated community. So we also strive to dismantle the violent and oppressive systems that uphold prisons. We do that in so many ways. One of them is by promoting the use of language, by not using certain words that would take away somebody's personhood. So we don't use the words like inmate or prisoner, but we strive to use words that our person first language. And I'm going to share in the chat our language guidelines. And the reason why I'm sharing this, I think it's important to reclaim your personhood when you're inside. And then when we talk about people who are currently incarcerated right now, we don't want to take away who they are. And doing so when we say the words like inmate or prisoner, others them, and we don't want to continue to other people. So if you want to check out some of our language guidelines, that would be great. There's really awesome resources that are linked in there. Eddie Ellis wrote this piece on why you should not use these words anymore. And, I didn't think that this was something that was taking away my personality or my personhood until I got out and then was labeled that by other people. I did not want to be labeled by others. I wanted to be who I am. Being in prison was something that happened to me, but it does not make me who I am today. So thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Valeria, and then we're going to talk about some of the work that the Alliance does that will directly help, could help your loved ones that are currently incarcerated.
Thank you, Lauren. And I think in speaking about language and the work that we're doing around language, you're opening up the conversation around other challenges or other things that are really absorbing all our attention today, because we're living in exceptional times, as we all know. So the first challenge that we're facing as prison educators, but also as abolitionists, is the fact that right now with COVID, programs are not allowed to enter the prison space, or like they're gradually allowed, but it is actually like a very slow process. So correspondence classes are not comparable to the value of in-presence instructions. And also, in a way, we're really thinking about technology together with the community. Technology as a great tool with many potentialities, but also, and this is something that we would like to hear also from you, how challenging the use of technology can be for those who are currently incarcerated, but also for the families that have to pay for those services. So it can be very easily in a way it's an exploitative tool, right? Because of the emotional connection between the currently incarcerated person and the families outside. And so this is something that we're really focusing on and in a way studying. Apart from that, I want to say that abolition is something that we're really thinking about seriously. Since the summer, debates, as you probably know, have arisen in the American public arena about police reform, defund, or abolition. And the tradition of prison abolition that we are trying to really embrace in our organization through our political philosophy connects the carceral state to the history of slavery, the plaguing existence of racial capitalism, and the material exploitation and killing of Black and Brown lives in this country. So our organization is truly working towards a political stance that is aligned with abolitionist visions, and yet we have to recognize that the field is not incredibly cohesive, but this is something, it's a public conversation that we're trying to facilitate right now at the Alliance. The last thing that I want to say, and it's something that is, I think, very important to acknowledge, is that there are many ambiguities and potentialities, again, that we're facing as prison educators and abolitionist activists. And we need to acknowledge the kind of space and the privilege that we have in the face of our incarcerated students in terms of positionality, material conditions, and general perspective. So there is something that is traversing the field and something that we really need to think about seriously, which is called the white savior complex, in the sense that as educators, we should enter the carceral space without the desire to transform the students who are inside. It's more of a conversation, it's a pedagogical vision, and it's mostly a way for the ones that have reflected upon this, it's a way to share the resources that were taken away from the incarcerated people in the United States today. And so this is something that I really wanted to mention because it's an important debate in the field. But Lauren, I think we should, deep dive into the work that we do. And so maybe we can start with the National Directory, which we welcome you to explore on our website.
So I'm like really excited. I see some of the questions in the chat, like Jennifer asking about Colorado education, and other people asking about education. So the National Directory is something that was started by Harvard University, but we took it over because it wasn't being updated and it wasn't a resource that was like usable for our community. So when I worked at Hudson Link, I would get a lot of calls from family members asking all of these questions about where can my son get an education like Hudson Link? What can I do? What can my daughter do to not pay so much money to go to college while incarcerated? So we didn't have this resource, but now we do. And it'll be updated soon with every year we do an annual survey to like inform this National Directory. So through the National Directory, you can find programs that are in your state that will help your loved one get like get access to education depending on the facility that they're in. Some states have no education right now, others do. With the Pell Grants being reinstated, so that should happen in about 2023, the options for education will be a lot larger, right? So we'll have more. Things are changing. I was blessed to just be in a state and a facility that had a good program. One of the questions was specifically about Colorado. I am like really excited to say that part of what we do is help statewide networks get created. And I was just like 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks ago, zooming into 5 Colorado prisons to talk with people who are currently incarcerated to get information about what they wanted to learn about myths and questions that they had for when they were getting out for employment. There's a new initiative coming soon, which we can share publicly soon. Like some of the students know that it's happening that are inside the prisons, but others don't. There's a few other programs in Colorado specifically. Adams State is great. Their correspondence course. We have connections with people there. And as well as Red Rocks Community College goes in into the prison. So it depends on where they are. And there's some in near Pueblo that also go in Colorado. So I'm still new to that area, so I'm still learning. But in other states, there's this national directory will help you. And if you can't find information for the exact prison that your loved one is in, hit up the programs. They might know something that, because this directory is only filled out by people who, like organizations and people that, and colleges that can like access our annual survey. It's public, but not everybody fills it out. So other people in the field might know better if you hit up the people in the state. And federally, I'm not 100% sure about federal programs. I know that there are some in New York. I see that question coming in. But we know that it's really hard to get into some of the programs, and hopefully access will be widened as the Pell Grants are reinstated throughout the country. So for sake of time, I want to move on to the next one. I dropped the link for the national directory so you guys can explore based on where you are. So Valeria is going to talk about our next piece, the reading project. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Lauren. So with the reading project, we're trying to get in touch with different programs and with different staff members of programs across the country in order to educate ourselves and to read together a book that is of significance for the field. And for this particular series that is going to start officially next week, so you can follow us on Twitter if you want to read along with us, we decided to read We Want to Do More Than Survive by Dr. Bettina Lobb, who happened to be the keynote speaker for our last virtual conference. This book approaches issues of social justice, intersectionality, anti-racism, and abolitionist teaching through a radical, refreshing lens. And so the reading project is something that at the moment only programs can apply to, but this doesn't mean that you cannot buy the book and read along with us by following us on Twitter. And this is a fantastic way to really be part of the conversation and be part of an abolitionist conversation, which is, again, like our ultimate goal. As an organization, we say in our political philosophy that the ultimate goal for the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison is not to have any reasons to exist. We really advocate for the abolishment of prisons altogether. And we think that higher education can play a very active and important part in doing so. The last thing that we wanted to talk about, especially because what we hope is that you might want to talk about this particular initiative to your sons and your loved ones who are currently incarcerated, because we would welcome papers and works by them, is the National Conference on Higher Education in Prison. So of course, the pandemic made the plans of the Alliance for an in-person conference last fall just you know, we decided that it was impossible to have an in-person conference last fall because of the pandemic. And so we had a virtual conference, our first virtual conference last March. And Dr. Donna, you were part of that conference, and we were very happy that you were there. And we had, as I said, Bettina Love as our keynote speaker. And the fact that it was a virtual conference, of course, took away the in-person contact that an in-person conference would have allowed us. At the same time, we were so happy because through Zoom, we could enter some of the facilities. We had some incarcerated scholars actually presenting at the conference from the facilities, and those were maybe the most powerful and interesting moments of the virtual conference. What we hope to do, of course, we are monitoring the health regulations and, you know, the course of the pandemic. What we are hoping to do is an in-person conference in November in Denver, Colorado. We're going to release a sort of submission portal very, very soon. And we really hope that you will share this information. This is all on the website, that you will share this information with your sons who are interested in this kind of work. And if they're interested in presenting at the conference, we will try our best to accommodate their needs and their work, because we really want to learn from them. So I am organizing this conference mainly with Lauren. So I would ask you, Lauren, if you want to add something else to what I said.
Yes, so I'm really excited that this conference is we're planning it for an in-person one, because the virtual conference, I feel like, leaves you lacking in community. So the biggest part that I loved about this conference, as being someone who attended before I started working for the Alliance, and being someone who is formerly incarcerated, was to, you know, be in person and like meet people who are doing very similar work to me who were formerly incarcerated. So I was able to connect with people all over this country who are getting PhDs, who are doctors, are scientists, who are, you know, doing work that I could have never dreamed about while I was incarcerated. I got connected with the formerly incarcerated graduates network, which is that over thousands of people who are getting education from associate's degrees to PhDs outside throughout the country, and have made connections with people I would have never met had it not been for this conference. So that is me, like, as a community person, as a relationship builder, being, that's why I love the in-person conference. We are going to probably have some Zoom availabilities to do like a hybrid form of a conference. I'm not sure what that looks like yet. This is the first time we would ever have a hybrid conference. So we're still work in progress, but the way that you guys can keep in like updated on all of the things that we do, I'm going to drop in the chat. It's our mailing list. And through that mailing list, you can find out what we're going to do for the conference, what we do all the time. Basically, like we also have a journal, which people can submit their work that they've done to, but all of that information comes through our newsletter, and that we send out. Soon we'll have like a monthly newsletter that comes out, but we also send out announcements through this newsletter sign up. But the other piece that I wanted, oh, sorry.
No. I just wanted to promote the emails, and I love it. I love that email every day. And there's a lot of exchange from programs all over the country. Sorry to interrupt you. I just have to say that. It's one of the best listservs I've ever been on. Sorry.
Dr. Donna is like our biggest fan. I love her. Basically, like, I know that this is a short overview. This is a way to get more involved in our organization, and either being at the national conference if you can attend, or Zooming in. There is someone here from Colorado, so we'll be there. If you want to come to the conference, we'll have registration will open hopefully like June-ish. not even people from Colorado, people fly from all over the country and world. We have people from Bermuda and Australia that come. So it's really important for, community and like education, just to learn that there's more programs out there. So we encourage you to get involved somehow if you can, and or not only that, we'll have like booklets and like information for your like incarcerated loved one that we can give you. And you can send into them, and also, hopefully that they'll participate in the conference. We want to hear what they have to say, what they want to work on, what policy, they want to change and things like that. I think that's the most important thing, because we are the people that know better, who've been through it. And we're the ones that are going to push the change. Earlier, I saw that people were talking about license, or like getting licensed to be a doctor. Well, there's a guy who's licensed to be an endocrinologist. So he does that work. He works for Howard now. His name is Stan Andrees, and he runs from prison cells to PhDs. He just wrote a book, and he's amazing and doing this work that you would have never thought that your loved one could do. And he's doing it. And he's one example of 100 people I could think of that are doing incredible things. So I don't know. This last slide has all of the things that we've mentioned: our website, the national directory, the national conference, and the reading project listed here. I've also shared the links in the chat, and I would love to take the questions I know Donna has for us.
I actually want to add only one little thing, because I know that the national conference, if it's in person, can present some challenges for people who are currently incarcerated. So another incredible venue is the journal that you mentioned briefly, Lauren. I just wanted to say again, on our website, you will find the journal on higher education in prison. The first issue of the journal is going to come up very, very soon, hopefully at the end of May, beginning of June. But if your sons, if your loved ones are writers and scholars, we absolutely welcome their submissions. And I can also promise you that if those submissions are good, and we think that they're going to, make a good, manuscript for the journal, as an associate editor, I also give support to those submissions, because we want to recognize the lack of resources, the lack of scholarships, inside prisons. And so as an associate editor, I will give that support, and I will have a sort of correspondence with the author of that manuscript. So please share this information with your loved ones. It would be great to have their pieces in our journal. And yes, I'm going to stop sharing, and we will happily take any questions you have.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, well, you know how I feel about your alliance, but I'm so honored and blessed that you could be here to talk to the group as a whole and the attendees. We do have a couple questions. Some of them I'm going to condense. Some of them you did cover, but it's a whole issue about cost. Many people are concerned that it's a privilege to take a course, any type of higher education course. So what can we do? Why is there a privilege? Something as simple as GED correspondence courses, because that's the first courses that fill up in prisons. So what advice do you have for us?
At the Alliance, we advocate for free education for everyone, whether like they're inside prisons or outside. Valeria has a little different perspective as, on free education. But I mean, not like in a negative way, like she had free education because she lived in Italy growing up. So in America, it's so different, and it's like completely like outrageous, the cost of education. I was blessed to have a program. I always say that I'm privileged and blessed to have that in New Jersey when I was incarcerated. But I have $32,000 of debt after my incarceration to try to go to school and not work full time. Even though I still had to take out loans and try to get it through. I don't know much about FAFSA. I will say I just saw a question, but I
Yeah.
know that my mom helped me through that. And the program that I was in was a pathway program, which I'm even more, like that is even more of a privilege that I did not realize. There's a very few limited amount of pathway programs. So you could take classes for free inside, but then when you get out, some of those universities don't take you. So it's a really hard, thing to do, but I had support. And what we're trying to do at the Alliance is build that support. And with these Pell Grants coming out and being allowed, there'll be more access. I know that there will be, but then there has to be more diligence on our end, like for policy and legislation on how that is quality. And not only that, how that is quality, how they're not exploiting people who are inside to just get the money and give them poor classes. So, it's a lot of advocacy. We're doing that so much out here. And FAFSA is available if people have a criminal record, even if they have the Pell Grant, I just want to say. But the only time that someone is disqualified is if they committed a drug offense while getting a Pell Grant, and then they got it taken away. You are not discredited if you can get financial aid and you can get the Pell Grants and state aid, TAP grants, or whatever they're called in your state, if you have a criminal record. So part of what we're doing with Colorado is busting these myths. We're talking about how this is untrue. So if you can just get that information into your family members so that they can spread it far and wide, that they are eligible, everyone in this country is eligible for it, except for if you committed a crime while getting a Pell Grant and it's a drug crime, because you could commit any other crime, but as long as it wasn't a drug crime. But hopefully that'll change too. So, yeah. So I don't know.
Thank you, Lauren. All of that is true. I work with a lot of freedom challenged individuals. That's my term. I don't use all that freedom challenged individuals. That's my term. And it is a journey. It really is a journey. And thank you for being there for that. We had another question that came in. Are there any organizations that help freedom challenged individuals to obtain books? Now,
Yes.
I'm not sure whether they're talking about books for their classes or books for the prisons, but that's the question.
Hold on, I'm looking it up right now. I do know of one. Does Valeria know one?
Yes. So I'm sorry to go back to the conference, but it was such a rich conference this year. And we had one speaker, Dwayne Betts, who is working at Yale, and he created, and please look it up, he created this project. It's the Million Book Project, and he is working through a Mellon Fellowship in order to send entire libraries into prisons, libraries that currently incarcerated people can actually use. And there is an incredible selection of books that he's working on. Here we go, Million Book, yes, exactly. So that is something absolutely fantastic. I also want to encourage you to listen to his podcast, and you will find it on the website of the Million Book Project, but also since we're in partnership with this project, you will find it also on our website. But Lauren, you want to talk about what you found?
So I know of a program called Books to Prisoners from when I worked at Hudson Link, and they would send in books. But there's also if your local library is getting rid of books, you could ask them to donate them to the prisons. Most prisons will take books. So if you're you could just drop them off at the gate and they take them. So and so North Carolina prisons, no law library. I don't know anything about that, but I will look into that to learn more. And I also saw a question about in Georgia, there's only a GED program. That is not true. There is a bunch of programs that are going in prisons and teaching. One of our colleagues is actually teaching a street law class inside one of the prisons there this fall coming up. They're working on a curricula right now for that program. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for all of that. I learned a couple just by talking to hearing you. Another question, are there any accredited college programs that can be correspondence that are inexpensive?
So I know that there's one in Connecticut. Do you know the name of Erin's program, Valeria?
No.
No.
Is that Ashland? Not Ashland.
No, not Ashland. Ashland's a for-profit school,
Yeah.
which is problematic in so many ways.
Yeah.
But
I want to put that out there, not
Yeah.
to trash them, but I
Yeah.
know from listening to your interactions, yes.
Yes.
Warning, folks.
yeah, for-profit schools are a little bit problematic. That's just the gist of what I'll say. In and outside of prisons.
The university I work for, like Cornell University, the Cornell Prison Education Program is free and it's correspondence class, but it is correspondence for the facilities in upstate New York. But I do have that information. So if the person who asked this question wants to send an email to the info account, I can give a list of resources that I already researched. So I have them ready to go.
Great.
I don't remember the name right now, but yes.
Is there any way that our families can advocate for our freedom challenged loved ones to receive tablets to further their education if their tablets are not in their facility?
So I'm going to take that on a little bit of a different political kind of stance. So I think that the tablets are super problematic, right? So I'll say that in saying sometimes they'll use those, and you all know how much it costs to call into a prison, right? They charge you by the minute to read a book on a tablet. I recently did a talk against Global Telling because they sponsored a program that I was a part of. And when I found that out and I had to do a speech, I went right in against Global Telling, being one of the leading ones, leading telecommunications companies that have exploited my family and all of you in this country and have cost my family like thousands of dollars for me to call them every year. And all of us millions of dollars that don't have the money, who need to support giving us food and giving us like a million other kinds of support while we're in. There's no reason that a phone call from New Jersey, where I was incarcerated, to New York, where I grew up, where my mom was living and my family all was, over $25. There's no reason for that. So they do the same thing with the tablets. Yes, it's great that they have some access inside the prison, but they charge way too much for the use of those tablets. There's not like a monthly fee. They're not free. They cost a lot of money to, sometimes they'll give them free to the people who are currently incarcerated, but then you're paying the fees. So the tablet company is making money off of you all, and that is ridiculous. There's so much more I could say about it. I personally, I will say I don't personally support education through tablets. I don't support reading through tablets because it costs too much money. I don't understand how a book should cost me a certain amount of money to read a minute. And think about how long a book takes to read, right? So if you get a 400-page book, maybe 20 hours, and whatever the cost, even if it's 25 cents a minute, that's ridiculous. It's a
lot.
Insane. So I don't support them. The Alliance doesn't advocate for tablet communication. We advocate for in-person education and face-to-face programs, although right now that's not possible in many places, or any places really, but we don't have a lot of information on that, so yeah.
And our last,
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Donna. I just wanted to say that I wrote in the chat 3 programs that I personally think are worthwhile checking, correspondence programs. So Adams State University, Colorado State University, Pueblo, and Ohio State University, they offer correspondence classes. And so I would encourage everybody to check them out. I'm sorry, Dr. Donna, for.
No, I appreciate that. Last question. Do you have any services in place for re-entry and furthering the educational journey post-release?
Lauren, you want to take this one?
I can. So we are not a reentry organization, I will say. I know a lot of resources that can help reentry wise, depending on where I've been from my own experience. But that's not really what we do as an organization. We really support, programs who are doing this like direct service work inside the prisons. We support by doing this national conference. So if you want to say reentry, I'll say the national conference could be a little bit of a reentry piece to keep community and keep the knowledge going and sharing. There are some things that we're planning to do in the future, like a professional development clinic to help people who are doing this work, who are formerly incarcerated, connect with people who are already in this field doing that. And but I know that our organization, since we're the national organization, doesn't do that. But a lot of these smaller programs, especially since COVID, have started to think about reentry in a different way. Reentry it had traditionally been a program or a thing that higher ed programs thought they didn't have to deal with. But COVID has changed a lot of people's minds, and we all know when we're formerly incarcerated that we need it, right? We need reentry support. I didn't have that in a way that was so holistic that I really needed. I didn't know I was eligible for certain benefits from the government. I didn't know so many things, especially I will say Hudson Link for Higher Education in Prison. If you look at their website and you're in New York State, in the lower part of New York State, and you can get your family in that program, I would try really hard, because when you get out, they give you suits or clothes and they provide you with like a wellness bag. There's also a house where you can live in. Any of their students, they provide them with laptops that are donated from the community. And they do a lot of things, but a lot of programs are looking at them to see how they can do reentry better. And I've mentioned a lot of other organizations here today, not just about the Alliance, but because I've been involved and I've seen the work that they do and I know that they're good. So somebody else mentioned from prison cells to PhDs. I'm here in Baltimore because of them right now. And I'm working with them. They do some great work, mentorship. Most of their people are formerly incarcerated. Project Rebound out in California, amazing reentry work. Trying to think off the top of my head. NJ-STEP in New Jersey.
All the CSUs, so that is a good thing.
Yeah.
Can I add something? And this is a way maybe to indirectly answer to one of the questions that I saw in the chat. I think that, Lauren, your answer was fantastic and I think very comprehensive. At the same time, I saw in the chat a question from someone asking, is higher education in prison available also to the ones who received a life sentence? And I want to say absolutely yes. So it is absolutely important to have reentry services in place and to actually get an education that would give you the tools to also re-enter society, enriched, right? But at the same time, we fully advocate for higher education in prison for the ones who unfortunately received a life sentence. So it's important to note that too. Thank you.
Yeah. And on that point, I just want to add that some programs that you'll find don't do that, but so many do. There's I was, in a prison that didn't, when I first started my education, it was before NJ-STEP existed because they came into fruition in 2012. But in 2010, I started doing my work, and people who had long sentences or a certain amount of time weren't allowed to be involved. When NJ-STEP came in 2012, that rule changed. So it is, it's depending on the program, and it depends on the people pushing for the rules to be changed as well. So not even people, you all as family members and, your sons and daughters inside the prison.
Right. Well, we thank you. Thank you for being a part of this. And I believe that there's a lot of information that's in the chat. We'll make sure that everybody gets it. And we are just so honored to have you here.
I want to say one last thing before. I just want to say Happy Mother's Day to all of you. I told my mom about this today, and she was crying, telling me that she wished she had known about this while I was incarcerated. And if she knew how to use Zoom, she does not know how to use Zoom. She would have been on here today. I'm kind of happy she isn't, because then if I would have known, I would have probably cried a lot more. But I want to say happy Mother's Day to all of you, and thank you for your support. And like, if your loved one isn't telling you that, they appreciate it more than you know. You guys are the reason why we keep fighting too. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lauren and Dr. Valeria, I will be in touch. You know that. Okay.
Please, please.
Thank you so
We
much.
look forward to it. Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you,
Donna.
ladies. Great
Okay.
job.
Kate.
Great job. Well, we've had a really good time here today, and we sure hope you enjoyed the time that you spent with us. In closing, I want to remind everybody to join us tomorrow, same time. Carol Kent is a best-selling author and international speaker. Her husband, Gene, and her, they have one son. He has a life sentence in Florida. She spends a lot of her time helping families learn how to adjust to the new normal, which it is, it's a new normal. So please join us tomorrow for her presentation. I know that you will be inspired and encouraged by Carol's story. In addition, we just wanted to say that we're not done. We just got started now that we know how to use Zoom, right?
Yes, and I have to say, Kate is the expert.
Oh, yeah.
We are
And,
going to have another conference. It's gonna come up. We're looking at the fall. So, but here's the theme and the topic. Their past should not be your present, and learning how to let go of the past and their past and finding joy in your life today. So we look forward to having you all again and hopefully see you tomorrow.
all right. Nice job, Dr. Donna. You did it.
We did it.
You did it.
Yay!
You did it. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to let you all go. We're going to stop sharing and turn this off. We will have access to your questions in chat, and you've got my name, my number, my email, and we're here for you. So big shout out to all my M.I.S.S members that have joined and all of our new friends on some of the platforms that we have just recently joined. There's a lot of good stuff out there. And so we love you and God bless you. And you have a great rest of the day. And don't forget to join us tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye, Donna.